Hello.
You scared me.
What's up?
Suit. Straighten your tie up, man.
Better?
Yes.
Cool. It is a suit game after all. Championships of all kinds.
Yeah.
Dude, the points in this Rose Bowl are insane. Unbelievable. What did Corn give you?
Anything.
What did Corn give you, Leonard?
He gave me Muschamp and Bentley.
Awesome. I'm guessing we'll do those at 20 and 30.
Yeah.
Cool. By the way, we have our most secure connection of the week, so we should not have any issues. Wire and everything. Is he still at the stadium or is he at the hotel?
He's at the stadium.
They gave him a box?
He's at the hotel, I'm sorry.
That's what I figured. You need me to turn it up or anything or no? Or am I good?
You said something just now?
Do you need me to turn it up or do you need me to back it off, or how do you? I just want to make sure I'm coming in not too hot.
That's fine.
All right.
Bob, you got a special guest behind you, Bob. You got a special guest. Hey, your friend's here.
Cool.
He looks fantastic. Bob didn't wait to see you.
What you got?
Come here, Ron.
Hey, that kid gotta be old now. I ain't been here.
It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Huge win for our football program. We don't have all the trophies and the tradition and the history, but we got some grit. We got some toughness, some resolve. We're 10-3 in one-score games in 2 years. Our players understand how to win close ball games.
This is kind of a rubber match, but, to be honest with you, this probably ain't going to be the last one. There'll probably be more of these down the road, and I think that's great. I think it's a fun game. Again, you got a lot of – this is big boy football.
And good evening, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome into Sports Talk as we kick off 2018 with you in style from Tampa, where South Carolina, in a come-from-behind classic win for South Carolina. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of hand-wringing about this thing because it was ugly for most of the day on offense for the Gamecocks. They really didn't get anything going until late in the third quarter, but that defense was rock steady for the most part all day long, and it kept them in the ball game. And the Gamecocks close out their season with a 26-19 win over Michigan in the Outback Bowl here in Tampa. It was cold. It was rainy. It was windy. It was Big Ten weather, and South Carolina weathered the Wolverines of the Big Ten, who become the first Big Ten team to lose in the postseason in bowl action. So congratulations to Will Muschamp and the Gamecocks. 9-4, just the 7th 9-win season for Gamecock football. They beat Michigan. This is hard to believe when you consider the histories of the two programs. Michigan, the all-time winningest program in college football history, and USC now with 601 wins in its history. But the Gamecocks have beaten Michigan 3 out of 4 times in head-to-head competition. So we are here in Tampa to tell you about everything that has gone on here, to hear from Will Muschamp and from the Gamecock players. Jake Bentley was named the game MVP. Kind of take you through what happened today, give you our observations. Will Pelagic is in New Orleans, where a little bit later on tonight, the Clemson Tigers will be taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide in the second game of the national semifinal. The first game is going on right now in the Rose Bowl between Oklahoma and Georgia, and it's a track meet. Georgia has a great defense. Oklahoma does not, but right now both defenses are being eaten up by their respective offenses. 21-13, Oklahoma on top of Georgia in the second quarter in the Rose Bowl. The Professor Tom Hayes is back at our studios in downtown Columbia. Our phone number, 800-956-7266. If you'd like to comment on South Carolina's win, on Clemson's game, 800-956-7266. And our email, talkback@sportstalksc.com. And on Twitter, we are at SportsTalkSC. Before we get out to New Orleans, and Will Pelagic, you were sitting back watching South Carolina battle and grind and try and hang on as long as it could before finally something good started to happen on offense, and it finally did. And that was a very good win for South Carolina as an 8-point underdog to reel off 23 unanswered points, erase a 19-3 deficit, and really take it to Michigan. Not going to say they won going away, but at the end of the day, they were the best team standing. They were the more confident team, and their defense came up with big plays.
Yeah, before South Carolina served a pot of hot black coffee in the locker room at halftime, this was Michigan's game. But you're right, Phil, this was a defensive game because South Carolina, if Michigan scores touchdowns on those 3 turnovers early in the football game, it's 21-0, and we could say that Michigan is in control. But the 2 stats that stand out to me when we look at this vaunted Michigan, both lines of scrimmage, quite frankly, defense, 74 yards rushing for Michigan, and 2 sacks on Bentley. Now, I know Bentley took a lot of shots. It was almost like a heavyweight fight, but, only 2 sacks for Michigan. So South Carolina held its own. The offensive line banged up. But as I said before, when you look at South Carolina and they have the surprise of Rico Dowdle coming into the football game, he is their best running back. He may not be the fastest off the line of scrimmage, but Phil, he does so much valuable work as a receiver coming out of the backfield that he is dangerous. But let's face it, that salvo right at the end of the third quarter, 2 touchdowns in about 80, 90 seconds, that woke South Carolina up, and I think they probably took control of that football game right then and there. And of course, the tremendous third down conversion off the rollout to Hayden Hurst, and then couple that with the bomb to Shi Smith. I thought South Carolina sealed the deal with that.
Yeah. A lot of big plays for them in the final 20 minutes or so in the ball game, both on offense and defense. I tweeted out at one point, South Carolina, through its first 11 offensive possessions, had something like 87 yards. And then in 3 possessions in which they scored their touchdowns there, they had 176 yards. So it came in big bunches for them, which is what they had to do. Trying to grind it out and long drives against that Michigan defense probably wasn't going to work in their favor. Michigan only had 1 drive of consequence for a touchdown. That was the one in the second half on their first possession of the second half. Other than that, they scored field goals off of Gamecock miscues. Special teams were terrible for South Carolina today. I mean, you had, first of all, the opening kickoff. How do you practice for a month, get ready for a bowl game, and kick the ball out of bounds on the opening kickoff? They did that twice. They had a fumble on a punt, a muff, when Chris Lamont shouldn't be totally blamed. Chris Lamont thinks that Joseph Charleston was hit by the ball and went and tried to recover it and fumbled it, muffed it, and Michigan got it. They had that. They had a defender on a punt run down and hit the receiver. That cost him yardage. They were short a man on a field goal attempt when they had their first field goal attempt by Parker White, had to burn a timeout because they were short a man there. They had 5 or 6 just bonehead mistakes in special teams that made the day even more difficult for them. But you know what? At the end of the day, they overcame it all. They get that 9th win for them, excuse me, and a lot of hope for the future in Muschamp's eyes. So, for Muschamp coming up, let's go to New Orleans to the Superdome and welcome in Will Pelagic, who is standing by to talk about this game and also look ahead to Clemson and Alabama. Happy New Year, Willie P.
Happy New Year, Corn, and welcome into New Orleans and the Superdome. And I tell you what, the atmosphere starting to build here in Superdome and in New Orleans, especially because of the fact that you're obviously seeing these two teams who have spent almost the entire week here as they get themselves ready for this college football playoff semifinal. And I think they're both looking at this game between Georgia and Oklahoma, and they're wondering how the heck they're going to stop both of these offenses. But first things first, they got to get by each other, and this the finale of the trilogy between Clemson and Alabama. A little bit of news today out of the Alabama side. Anthony Averett, the sensational cornerback for the Crimson Tide, had a bit of a freak accident. He slipped off of the team bus earlier this morning and ended up spraining his ankle. Alabama officials say they still believe that he will be able to play today, but that's something to monitor at least going into this game, which already has Alabama down a couple of players at inside linebacker and one at safety, while Clemson comes in, as we've said all week, the picture of perfect health. The only guy who won't be playing is Judah Davis, the reserve linebacker who was injured during bowl practices in South Carolina. But we are about 3.5 hours, at least 2.5 hours away from kickoff here at the Superdome. It's going to be interesting, especially because of the fact that Clemson, as we talked about all week, they practiced out in the cold in Tulane, wondering how they will acclimate themselves to the Superdome game site after Alabama practiced all week here in the Superdome.
All right, sir. Hang on. We'll get back to you, and we'll get your thoughts about the South Carolina win over Michigan earlier today when we come back from the break. The comment to Will Muschamp just a little while ago. We're not too far removed from the post-game press conferences. We'll let you hear from him, Jake Bentley, Hayden Hurst, Sky Moore, TJ Brunson, Brian Edwards, all that coming your way here on Sports Talk from Tampa and New Orleans, and, of course, Columbia.
Turn your sound down, Corn.
Was that me? Ah, dadgummit.
Would love to know why I keep getting reverb when I start talking on this setup. It always happens right when I start talking, and it doesn't happen for some reason. It only happens when I first start talking.
Yeah, I hear it, and then it just smooths out.
It's the worst. Don't know why that happens. Like I have to turn it down in order to be able to hear myself.
Weirdest thing. Doing the much chat when we come back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome again to our Sports Talk post-game coverage of USC's win over Michigan, our pregame coverage of Clemson and Alabama. Very unique night for us here on Sports Talk to begin 2018 on this January 1st. Hope everybody had a great New Year's Day, New Year's Eve evening, had a great time, enjoyed everything, and you are enjoying all the football today. The big game coming up tonight, Clemson and Alabama in New Orleans. More on that coming up. Right now, Oklahoma is leading over Georgia 24-14 in the Rose Bowl. USC has beaten Michigan 26-19. Central Florida, a winner over Auburn today to complete a perfect season, and LSU loses to Notre Dame today. So we'll give you more on that in a little bit, and more from Will out in New Orleans in just a little bit as well. As far as USC's win today, it started out horribly for the Gamecocks. They just could not on offense in the early parts of this ball game. Michigan's defense, of course, deserving a lot of credit. First of all, Stanley and Bailey did not start. Neither did Dowdle. Bailey came in late in the first quarter after Bentley had been sacked. Blake Camper started at the right tackle spot and was having a hard time out there. So Bailey goes in with a heavily taped and a right leg and a big brace on that right leg. Lamont had the mishandled punt. Michigan recovered, went to a field goal to make it a 3-0 game. USC didn't get a first down until 3:05 of the first quarter. That's how impotent the offense was for South Carolina. Michigan recovered a Gamecock fumble at the USC 31. That was another field goal to make it 6-0. That's in the first quarter. 9-3 at the half. 3 first-half field goals by Michigan, 9-3 at the half. And then on their first possession of the second half, Michigan drove for a touchdown. So they're up 16-3 and added a field goal. They're up 19-3. And it looked like the Gamecocks were just dead in the water. But then things started to change a little bit. The Gamecocks got some things going on defense. They finally got the offense going with a 6-play, 77-yard drive. Dowdle with a 17-yard run. Got the Gamecocks to within 19-9. They went for 2. That failed, so it's 19-9. Then on Michigan's next play, after the kickoff, there was a fumble. USC recovered. Next play, Bentley to Brian Edwards for 21 yards, 19-16. Then the Gamecocks get a stop. Next possession, quickly they score. 53-yard pass from Bentley to Shi Smith, who turned on the speed. Gamecocks are now leading 23-19. Michigan put a drive together. They were threatening. Jamarcus King intercepts Brandon Peters in the end zone. Number 7 coming back to haunt Michigan once again. 4 years to the day, the real number 7 did his thing. Jamarcus King, wearing number 7, came up with a big interception that stymied a drive. USC added a field goal in the fourth quarter to make it 26-19. Parker White missed a field goal in the final minute or so, giving Michigan life. But Stephen Montag ended up with an interception of Peterson, and that sealed the ball game of Peters, and that sealed the ball game for the Gamecocks with that interception with 1:05 to play, and the Gamecocks ran out the clock. Not an offensive showcase by any means for either side. USC averaged 2.3 yards per rush, Michigan 2.2. USC finished with 300 total yards to Michigan's 277. The Gamecocks did average 5.2 yards per play to Michigan's 3.6. They did try to go up-tempo, and they did. I mean, they went faster, but it also led to some very quick 3-and-outs. The Gamecocks had a lot of possessions. They just didn't have a lot of plays until the latter part of the game. Bentley was 19 of 32 for 239 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 3 times. He was intercepted once. Dowdle had 45 yards rushing. Brian Edwards, 5 catches for 88 yards. Rodriguez Davis, 4 catches for 23 yards. Shi Smith had 3 for 59 and that touchdown. Peters was 20 of 44, intercepted twice for 186 yards. And again, they kept the running game in check with Higdon leading Michigan with 65 yards. Defensively, T.J. Brunson had a big game, 13 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Sky Moore finished his career with 5 tackles. He leads the Gamecocks in tackling for the 4th time in his career, becoming the 15th linebacker in college football history to lead his team in tackles for 4 seasons. That is the backdrop to Will Muschamp. Here are his comments after the win.
Huge win for our football program. We don't have all the trophies and the tradition and the history, but we got some grit. We got some toughness and resolve. We're 10-3 in one-score games in 2 years. Our players understand how to win close ball games. And you saw us down 19-3, not a lot of good things happening for us. We found some things. I thought Brian McClendon did an outstanding job preparing our football team offensively and the entire offensive staff going into this game. Made a lot of adjustments at halftime on some things that we felt like we could take advantage of. We're only the 5th team this year to have at least 300 yards against them. We're right at 5.2 yards a play. And but really proud of those guys and some shots we took down the field, being aggressive in our mentality and what we're trying to do. Certainly the tempo helped us create some cheap yardage for us. I'm not going to address anything else about the offensive coordinator position at this time, but really impressed with Brian and the job that he did. Defensively, the key to the game to me was obviously the turnovers in the second half, but the first half holding them to the field goals. In those situations, thinking to myself, all right, we've held them to 9 in 2 situations. They wanted 14. We gave them short fields in 2 situations, and then obviously on the punt, and then we had the personal foul when Ben ran into the returner. So, I really, all 3 phases, a really great team win for us, 9th win for this year, only the 7th team in school history to do that. But all the arrows are pointing up for us. Our administration's investing in our program, our football operations building, the things that we're doing to be successful. We're going to have those trophies soon, and I'm looking forward to our future. So I appreciate it. It's been a great week. I guess I'll open it up for any questions. I wish those worked. I'd be good at them, but they don't. So, no, I think that it's 365 days a year how you run your program and the culture of your program. Our guys understanding at halftime we're at 9-3. We gave them 3 short fields. We actually moved the ball decently well against a very good Michigan defense. But, at the end of the day, we play for 60 minutes, and our guys understand that. And they keep chomping and they keep hanging in there, and they realize that, when you have Jake Bentley and you got Hayden Hurst and you have Brian Edwards and you have some guys that are able to make some plays, and those guys are going to eventually make some plays for us. And that's where you just keep chopping and keep playing. And never once would I feel like the game was in the balance as far as that was concerned. Really not until yesterday. He came to me and, I didn't feel – I told y'all, I guess, whenever the press conference was, that I didn't feel like he would play in the game at the time. But we gave it a go in pregame. He said, hey, I feel good. I want to give this a shot. And he certainly gave us a charge. What a great run on the option play on the check by Jake out the backside against the look that we had. So, again, he's a really good football player. We've certainly missed him as far as – the latter part of our season and the charge that he gives us. Donnell Stanley in pregame didn't feel good enough to go. Zach was able to play. And Sherrod Green, I don't think, was able to get in. We thought we'd be an emergency only. Well, I think that it says that we've made progress. It's easy to point at tangible things and say, this is good. It helps in recruiting, obviously. It obviously helps your fan base. And so we got to continue to move forward. The great thing about it is we're building. and 70% of our roster is freshmen and sophomores. We have a bunch of really good players coming back next year. We need to have a great offseason. I told the guys, I thanked the seniors, I told the underclassmen, when you come back in January, all gas, no brakes. Let's get ready to roll. And that's what we need. You got to keep pressing forward in everything you do, and that's what we're going to do in our program. And certainly we've scratched the surface of what I think we can do.
All right, Will Muschamp from his post-game remarks. Will, what was your take on South Carolina's win today from your seat at the Superdome or wherever you watched it?
Basically, the turnovers told the story. I think that, and unlike Will Muschamp said, holding them to field goals in the first half kept them in this football game. I said that, even though there might not be as much offense going in, that Michigan's impotent offense would keep South Carolina in this game if they can have some defensive plays, and they were able to make those plays, and they finally got offensive momentum when they needed it.
All right, more from the Gamecock locker room coming up. USC beats Michigan 26-19. Sports Talk, Happy New Year 2018. Back in a moment.
I am. Let's flag Dorothy down and tell her.
We are back at Sports Talk in Tampa and New Orleans and Columbia. South Carolina has beaten Michigan 26-19 to close out a 9-4 campaign. Announced attendance today, 45,000. James Stadium, actual attendance was well below that. I'm sure there was not much of a walk-up crowd. The folks who bought tickets from Michigan and South Carolina and came down, obviously they went. But on a day when, if it was a nice day, you might have seen a few thousand people come in from the Tampa area, surrounding area, to come to the football game. That wasn't going to happen today because the weather was just not suitable for that. Cold, windy, and wet, keeping away the fans who might have walked up and bought tickets. So it doesn't really matter as far as South Carolina is concerned. All that matters to them is getting the W, 26-19 over Michigan. Pro, update us on Oklahoma, Georgia. I know you've been keeping an eye on that, 24-14. How is it that Oklahoma, with 2 minutes and 50 seconds to go in the half, apparently has just been able to go up and down the field on this talented Georgia defense?
Well, Lincoln Riley, if it's NASCAR, he's supposed to be using gasoline. I think he's using rocket fuel on the sideline. Oklahoma, 209 yards in total offense in the first quarter alone. And they hit Georgia, but Shoni Michel with that 75-yard run got Georgia kind of cranked up in this football game. And they came out of a hole at the 2-yard line on about a 50-yard run by Chubb, but couldn't do anything with it. But Georgia holding their own. And let's face it, Oklahoma, if this was a basketball game, Oklahoma wants to score in the 90s. Georgia would like it in the 50s. Georgia's playing Oklahoma's game right now. It's fast break basketball on the gridiron.
All right, back to a USC. It was not fast break at all for either one of these offenses. I mean, for the most part, the offense is kind of plodded along. And Michigan people, I mean, I'm not tuned into Michigan at all. They still apparently, like Harbaugh up there, but they've got to be scratching their head about why this guy, this coach, with his offensive reputation, with his big name, with his pro background, is having a hard time getting this Michigan offense into high gear. And it's got to start at the quarterback play. They went with the freshman quarterback, Brandon Peters. Today, he did come out for one play when he got poked in the eye, and John O'Corn went in and completed a pass. I mean, Michigan just doesn't lack for talent. You know that. They recruit extremely well. You look at the names on their roster and the names of the guys playing. They're all guys that were heavily recruited with offers to a variety of different FBS programs, but they just look slow. They looked, I don't know, unimaginative on offense, I guess you could say. They just didn't show a lot. Now, South Carolina's defense was very, very good. This was a good matchup for South Carolina. We talked about this in the month leading up to the game. I thought this was a good matchup for South Carolina's defense, Pro, because they don't have the speedsters at Michigan that South Carolina had. Have the very mobile quarterback that they have trouble with. They do have some Clydesdales, some big old heavy horses up front, but they were able to neutralize that. I thought Javon Kinlaw and Kier Thomas and a variety of guys they ran up front on the defensive line more than held their own against Michigan's big offensive line.
Bunnell, Johnson, and Sterling, some young guys who have stepped it up, played well. It was almost like Michigan's linemen trying to catch a rabbit. They may be bigger, but South Carolina's linemen were quicker, and the linebackers really filled the holes with the running game. To me, the thing about Harbaugh, he's still trying to find what signature offense works at Michigan. Because at Stanford, he used the 2 and 3 tight end approach, running up the middle, made lines of scrimmage on the outside, but he has not decided what he's going to do with all these Michigan athletes. And it seems like he's doing a juggling act between what he's trying to experiment with successfully at Stanford, which Stanford still uses.
The game MVP was USC quarterback Jake Bentley, 19 of 32, 1 interception, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 3 times. Personally, I didn't enter a vote because I was just too busy doing other stuff to really think about it. And they asked for your vote well before the game's over, and I like to wait. So anyway, I didn't vote. But T.J. Brunson, with his numbers, 13 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. The defense saved the day for South Carolina, really. It gave them a chance to get back into the ball game when this game could have gotten out of hand. But the trophy goes to Jake Bentley, sophomore quarterback. Here's what he had to say about that and the win.
That trophy's not going in my room or my house or anything that has to do with me. It's going in our offensive team room because it really was about everyone on our offense today. I mean, it wasn't just me. It was our receivers. It was our O-line. I mean, we went against some grown men on the D lineman today, and man coverage all day, and the guys made plays. So this trophy is it's for all of us. It's not just to me. Not really. You know, the big thing that I've learned, I guess playing, as a freshman, I just go back to the Florida game, my freshman year of things aren't going well, and I was just sitting on the bench, just by myself, not saying anything. And so this year, I feel like I've done a better job, and I think it, really showed today of just staying positive. I mean, continually go down the line on the bench and just stay positive and just keep the guys encouraged. Not one person on our offense got discouraged. Everyone had full confidence that we're going to come back and win. And that's what it takes when you get down. I mean, if you have one guy that doesn't believe that we're going to win, you're not going to win. So that's why I go back to it's really about the whole offense to get this award. What we said we're going to run in practice, we did. I mean, he told us we were going to be aggressive and challenge these guys, and that's what we went out and did. And the guys made plays, and it's just everyone had complete confidence in them. I think it showed through bowl practice. I mean, I think we scored more touchdowns on our defense during bowl practice than we did all season. So, and just to be able to come up, just do that all preparation leading up to this, and to come out and play well is just a great feeling.
All right, Jake Bentley, USC quarterback, after the game. Will Muschamp had a lot of positive things to say about Brian McClendon, his offensive staff. He felt like they prepared the team well, felt like they made quality adjustments at halftime. He had nothing to do with any of that, he said. He says his offensive coordinator calls every play. He doesn't call anything on the offense. He leaves it up to him. They did go faster. And, Pro, I think you hit the nail on the head when talking about that earlier. When you go fast, you tend to have a lot of quick 3-and-outs. And the Gamecocks had a lot of quick 3-and-outs. Michigan had the ball a lot longer than USC did. But, Will, do you think McClendon showed enough with the offensive performance in maybe the last 20 minutes or so? You think he showed enough with what they did to earn the offensive coordinator's job full-time?
Well, you don't like the inconsistency, at least from one half to another, but I think you saw the innovation. You saw them trying to do different things, and I think that's the one thing that we wanted to see. We wanted to see tempo. We wanted to see some shots down the field, which we saw on the long pass to Shi Smith. I don't know if it necessarily, and this is something, again, that I think about when the change was made. I really don't think it was all Kurt Roper's fault. I think he was limited in what he could do with the talent that he had around him. I think that the injuries on the offensive line certainly hampered them in the ability to do some of the things they wanted to do. The injury to Deebo Samuel obviously took away a very key weapon. We saw some ingenuity. We saw more involvement with Hayden Hurst. I don't know if it's enough, though, because I think that what they really want to do is they want to try and find the best person to utilize the personnel that they have. And the other part of this, too, is they're not done building this personnel grouping. The one problem you do run into, though, as we've talked about over the course of the last couple of weeks, is if you don't give Brian McClendon the job, do you risk losing him to another position at another university? Because of the fact that both he and Mike Bentley are the two best offensive recruiters, you wonder if that hampers South Carolina and the ability to retain both those guys.
Amen. I agree with you, Will.
We'll find out. We'll find out before too much longer now, because season's over and Muschamp can get down to the task of filling that job and also hiring his 10th assistant, which he said he would do when that becomes permissible on January the 9th. Okay, we'll be back with more from Tampa and New Orleans and Columbia in a moment.
Could you confirm with Phil that we're doing Mick or no?
I think he said he was going to tell Mick we're going to wait till tomorrow to do him.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for him to give me the definite on that.
That's fine. I have no problem with that.
Oh, sure.
You can just save that open then. And Oklahoma hanging 31 up in the first half. Amazing.
Hey, I really am waiting for that beignet mix. I just want you to know that.
What's that?
I said I really am waiting for that beignet mix. I just want you to know that.
I'll have to pick it up on my way out tomorrow. People here talk so funny.
It's only funny to outsiders, man.
I just think I find them funny.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Okay, Oklahoma's got another one up on the board, Pro. How'd they do it?
Quick running touchdown as Ryan Anderson scores. And, boy, I tell you what, Oklahoma, something like, Phil, 350 yards in total offense in the first half. Baker Mayfield, 200 yards on 13 of 18 receiving. So Oklahoma is telling Georgia, your running game is not going to be good enough. You're going to have to go with the track meet. And all along we said, when would the freshman have to throw the ball for the Georgia to win? And it seems like the time is now.
What a performance by this Oklahoma offense. Baker Mayfield, who was sick, of course, much of the week. Much was made about that. How much would he be able to play? How well would he play? Apparently not a problem at all. As I'm watching this thing wrap up in the first half, we've got Georgia attempting a 55-yard field goal as, well, they're going to have a timeout. So one thing I wanted to mention, going back to USC and the coaching situation there and the staff, something I picked up yesterday, and I tweeted it out, not as a news story, but just as something to stash away, and that is a football coach I know in the state of Georgia was telling me there in that state amongst football coaches that he talks to, is that Shane Beamer is a possible person, and I'm trying to water this down, is a possibility as someone that Muschamp might talk to come back to South Carolina. Now, I'm watering it down quite a bit because I don't have anything definite. However, the
person of interest, would you say, maybe?
Well, yeah, but maybe, I mean, I'm trying to be very cautious here. The person who told me this got his information from somebody who is pretty connected in football coaching circles and who had shared with him information about John Chavis going to Arkansas and taking Steve Caldwell with him, told him that was going to happen. And indeed it did. And this person told this person that it's going to happen, that Beamer would be going to South Carolina. I'm watering it down. I'm not putting all that into it because I just want to be careful. I try to be careful when it comes to coaching moves. Blankenship nails that 55-yard field goal. So 31-17, Georgia gets a little momentum going into the locker room at the half.
Well, Phil, I wanted to echo when I said amen to what Will was talking about. And I go back to what Zach Willis said the other night. In his mind, you have to have players to win. So in his mind, recruiting comes before coordinating. And he feels that, if you got a guy that's recruiting Georgia very well and a quarterback's coach that's recruiting very well, why shake up the apple cart? And I saw on the sideline, even the body language with Bobby Bentley. He was engaged, and he had his son or whoever the quarterback is, I don't care what the connection is, he had him relaxed on that sideline. You could tell they were engaged, they were intense, but he had him relaxed. That's the key.
If there was one glaring part of that.
Well, I was about to finish that. I don't know if it's Shane Beamer, whoever, Phil, but I get the feeling that not only does Muschamp want somebody to help in the special teams, but he also wants somebody with connections, recruiting connections in the state of North Carolina. And that's the key as well, I think.
I would say that the one thing that you need, though, is you need to come up with some sort of different way to get a first down on 3rd and short. I mean, we saw it repeatedly over this season. We saw it happen a couple of times early in the game. I know that they went back to a screen pass on a 3rd and 1 later in the football game that was able to get them a first down. But in my mind, guys, there were too many times today where you looked around and you saw, again, a lot of the same problems. And the other thing, too, if there's a negative on this side of the football, the offensive lines for both sides got worked by the opposing defensive line. I mean, South Carolina's defensive line played very, very well. The linebackers played very well. But the offensive line was, at times, a very disgusting no-show.
Continuing to try to run the ball up the middle on the short yardage was not a smart move. I mean, I don't know why you don't do something with a guy with the speed of A.J. Turner and get him outside on those short yardage situations against a defense that is really tough to run against right up the middle, and perhaps you can get an advantage going outside with his speed. But maybe that's something that they will develop a better game plan and a better mental approach and attack for next year when they have their whatever coordinator is going to be, whether it's McClendon or whoever comes in. Had better have a better idea on how to attack those kind of situations. Now, the Gamecock defense had a great day throughout. Again, they had the one drive go against them, but for the most part, did not allow too many big plays down the field. The longest run of the day for Michigan was 16 yards. The longest pass completion of the day was 27 yards. So they did a good job preventing the big play. And they manned up as far as the physicality is concerned. They stood up to that big Michigan offensive line time and again, and shut the door on the running game. Sky Moore playing his last game for the Gamecocks went out in style. Good performance for him. He gets the win. He gets the 9th win. He doesn't get the interception to break the record at USC, but he does finish the season as the team's leading tackler. Giving him that honor for 4 years at USC. And again, that puts him in elite company nationally. And afterwards, he talked about that defensive performance and how they came up big when necessary to preserve a situation where they could come from behind and win.
How about the way the defense just kind of held together, and kind of kept this game within reach?
Oh yeah. You know, every time we're out there, we always say we got to control what we can control. So, you know, if the offense is struggling, we got to play our game and you know, help them out. So, you know, we're always going to be out there try to be the best defense as possible. So that's nothing changes if the offense is struggling. We still going to play good defense.
Did you guys just pretty much sell out against the run, thinking that Peters couldn't beat you through the air?
You know, we played our gaps really. Like, you know, I don't really feel like we put too much in the box, but you know, we all played our gaps. We played tough run defense, and you know, we just got the job done.
Speaking of run defense, you guys average giving up 144 yards a game. You held them to under 90 today offensively, and third down they were 2 of 17. So, and you know, two big things you guys did. Again, what did you do to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, you know, T-Rob, Muschamp, they've been in our ear this past whole month. You know, Big Ten football, they're going to test your manhood. They're going to try to run it down your throat. So y'all better, you know, come strapped up. So, you know, we've been hearing that for a month. When we hear it for a month, you know, you're ready for it. And game day came, so, you know, we was just ready for it today. So.
How about the game TJ had today?
Oh, yeah, it's a great game. Like I said, you know, he's a great player. Torch is passed to him, definitely. It's his defense now. You know, he's going to do great things, you know. So he's a great player.
As you look back now after your career's 5 years here, I mean, you leave with a New Year's Day win, 9 victories. What do you see for the future?
Sky's the limit for this program, you know. You know, we finished the year off with 9 wins. 2 years ago we had 3, you know. So the program's changed. The whole culture's changed. Muschamp has done an amazing job getting everybody's minds changed. So, you know, I'm excited to come back next year and, you know, and see this team. I expect a lot of big things.
The sky's the limits, and Sky Moore helped raise that ceiling in South Carolina on defense. What a great career this guy had. And Muschamp said afterwards that in his mind, and he's coached NFL before, he believes Sky Moore will be an outstanding NFL linebacker because he's so smart, knows the game, knows the defenses, not to mention his physical tools, his heart and his desire, and he runs well. And I agree with him. I think he's going to have a tremendous NFL career.
He has that knack of being able to play the pass. And in today's NFL, if your linebackers can't cover, they can't play.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that'll do it for the first hour. We've got more post-game coverage from the Gamecock locker room coming your way, more from New Orleans. Will has a couple of interesting interviews for us coming up to further preview Clemson and Alabama, and we'll be back on this New Year's night.
Can you hear me? He said he's going to finish up with the USC stuff. Then the rest of the show is your clips and stuff. Did you hear me, Will? Cool.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Happy New Year. First show of 2018. What a day it has been in college football right here in Tampa. USC a winner over Michigan, 26-19. A great way for Gamecock fans to begin the season. 8-point underdog. Team looked like it was left for dead there for a while. Came to life late in the third quarter. Rolled on to the victory over Michigan. Central Florida beat Auburn 34-27. Notre Dame beat LSU 21-17 at the half. Oklahoma leads Georgia 31-17. Let's bring you some more from the USC locker room. Then we'll turn our attention to what's ahead tonight in New Orleans with Clemson, Alabama coming up. Will is there. Hayden Hurst played his final game today as a Gamecock and didn't have huge numbers overall, but he did have a big catch late in the game for the Gamecocks to help keep a drive going. He ended up with 3 catches for 41 yards. They tried to run him a couple of times as well. That didn't go well. -6 yards on a couple of runs, but a tremendous career for him at South Carolina. Afterwards, he talked about getting the win and how the defense kind of helped hold things together until the offense could catch up.
I mean, like I was saying in the first half, I mean, their guys had their ears pinned back and they were coming at us. But, BMAC, he kept with it. I mean, he kept the same game plan he had for us all week, and he made some pretty good calls. And, when it comes down to it, your players have to make plays.
How did you guys keep your confidence and your poise on offense when time after time just things weren't working until you got it going?
I just think that speaks volumes to our coaching. No matter what the score is or anything, we're going to give our best effort. Whether we're down 19-3 or it's a 2-point game, we're gonna go after the team that we're facing.
What are sort of the emotions to be able to cap a career with a game like that?
That's huge. I mean, personally, I didn't have my best game, but I mean, as a team, we figured it out in the second half. BMAC said it. Your players make plays. And he dialed stuff up, and our guys went up there and made plays for us.
You had at least one big catch. I think it was right before Shai's one, kind of a jump ball on third down. What are you seeing and feeling, and what's kind of just happening there?
I saw Jake break the pocket. You know, I had like a shallow crossing route. I saw him break the pocket, just kind of worked up the field. I guess he liked the look and put it up, and I saw the ball up in the air, and I jumped for it and pulled it down.
What do you say about your defense, keeping the game within reach until you guys got it going?
Those guys are awesome. They've done it all year. They make plays. I mean, they get the ball off people, time in and time out. I mean, they lead the SEC in takeaways, and that's an impressive group.
Okay, Hayden Hudson, his comments after the Gamecocks' victory earlier today, and, he'll do well in the NFL. He's a smart kid. He's a hungry kid. He's got a great work ethic. He's got skills, and I think that did I say Hayden Hudson again?
You did.
Gracious.
You did.
Hayden Hurst.
Who is Hayden Hudson?
He's a former radio guy up in the upstate of South Carolina. Had a great career up there. I don't know why his name is.
Why is his name on your mind, man?
Hurst. I don't know. Anyway, Hayden Hurst, good luck to him as he moves forward in the professional ranks. Let's give you more from the Gamecock locker room. T.J. Brunson had a big day at linebacker for the Gamecocks, making plays all over the field along with Sky Moore and other members of the Gamecock defensive unit. Of course, he's just a sophomore, so he's coming back for at least one more season, maybe two more, depending on how things play out and his interests about moving forward. Here are his comments after the game about what the defense was able to do to keep the Gamecocks in the hunt.
TJ, what were you guys talking about as you had to step up and force field goals and not touchdowns as things weren't going well for the offense?
Hold them to a field goal. That's like our biggest thing, at least. I mean, at a certain point, it's just, trying to keep them out of the end zone. So we've been doing it all year. I feel like we've done a pretty good job. It's just something that we need to continue to do.
How did you guys keep the running game down the way you were able to? What were you reading there?
We've been working on it for the past few weeks. So, I mean, it just came down to executing our run fits and everything, and everybody being on the same page, having the right call and everything. So,
you picked a great time to have your first 2 sacks of the season.
Yeah.
Why did it come today?
I think the coaches just had really good calls and stuff, but I mean, there was good execution. I think Dante did a really good job helping me get those. So I mean, our D-line played their butts off. Really thankful.
What do you think this performance says, not just about the team, but about the defense in particular? Because without a great defensive performance, you don't win this game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a statement game. We wanted everyone to know where we're headed and how we were. I mean, I think the defense was pretty solid for the most part this year. And, it was just another game for us to come out and showcase our talent.
And a 9-win season, a bowl win on New Year's Day. How does it make you feel about 2018?
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the 2018 Gamecocks. We have a lot of guys coming back and a lot of new talent coming in. So I think we're going to be really good.
Win the East possibly? Can you overcome Georgia and some of those others?
We got to get through winter workouts and everything in spring. So I don't want to we're going for it. That's our goal. I mean, we want everything. But, we got to take it a day at a time at this point.
Okay, T.J. Brunson really liked the looks of that kid. He's going to have a terrific rest of his career at South Carolina. You talk about the right approach along with the skills. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to have a lot of tackles by his name over the next couple of years if he stays for 2 more years, and has really been a guy from the moment he joined the program, has had an impact on the defense. Final interview from the USC locker room, Brian Edwards, who had the big catch to get the Gamecocks off the schneid as far as the touchdowns go. He caught that pass after the Gamecocks recovered that fumble, 21-yard pass. It was not an easy catch either. Had to kind of contort his body a certain way to get up there and catch it, and he did, as he's just one of those really good receivers who can do things like that. We talked with him after the win. Brian Edwards.
What was the play call for your touchdown?
It was inside. It was just a inside poster out, really.
The name of the play, though?
Poster.
Talk about what's this made a victory for yourself and this football program for you guys.
It's a huge win for this football program. Coming from where we came from last year and the year before that, going out with 9 wins is huge for us.
Did you guys ever lose your confidence in the first nearly 3 quarters when things just weren't going well?
Nah, we've been in this situation so many times before that we never hang our heads on anything. Good things happen, bad things happen. You never get too high, you never get too low.
When did you start to feel it slip into gear and maybe momentum come your way?
Definitely after the touchdown. Well, really after the turnover, I feel like we're going to get something right here, and it happened for us.
How good is to see Rico out there?
It's real good to see Rico, familiar face, making plays back. He's not even 100% yet. So, when he gets back 100%, it was kind of 50-50 today. So, I didn't know he was going to play. And if he did dress, I didn't know if he was going to get any reps, but he did. And he came up huge.
Talk about your touchdown catch after the turnover. Degree of difficulty on that was pretty high.
Coach B-Mac puts a lot of pressure on the receivers to make plays when the ball's in the air, no matter who's covering you, they're holding you, ball's high, low, So, I just went up and, got it. And that's what I'm coached to do.
And so to win 9 games, a bowl win on New Year's Day, a lot of guys coming back. What do you think about 2018 for this club?
2018, the sky's the limit for our program. We just got to go out and do it. In the offseason, everybody has to work hard and continue to do the things that we know we can do and just build off this win.
And what do you think of how Jake hung in there, because things weren't going too well and he was taking a lot of hits and things of that nature, but then he hit some big throws and got you guys moving?
Jake's a very resilient guy, and I knew he's going to be tough and hang in and make those throws. So, I was never shaking about Jake. He's going to be Jake all the time.
Okay. That is T.J. Brunson after the Gamecocks win today over Michigan, 26-19. When we come back, and that's going to wrap it up as far as coverage of the Gamecocks go. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to Clemson and Alabama. Willie P. is in New Orleans. More for him, more from the Tigers. Looking ahead to Alabama Club.
Hey, Will, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just throw it to you and let you take us in and out of the segments as you want. Which one do you want to go first?
What's that?
He said he's going to just throw it to you and let you go in and out of the segments as you please. Which segment did you want to go to first?
Sweeney.
Gotcha.
We'll go in the order that was prescribed.
Faux show.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
We are back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblut in Tampa. Have not moved here permanently. Will be heading back to Columbia tomorrow. Feel like I need to pay some taxes while I'm here. Probably will when we check out. Get hit with a tax bill. Professor Tom Hayes back at our studios in downtown Columbia. Will Pelagic in New Orleans. Brian Leonard at our studios in downtown Columbia as well. So we've pretty much said everything and covered up everything that we can on the Gamecocks. Before we jump to the Tigers, one last thing on the Gamecocks, guys. What do you think this means moving forward now? 9 wins, going from 3 wins to 6 wins to 9 wins. Got a lot of the team coming back. Will, what do you think the future holds, the immediate future holds for this Gamecock football team?
Schedule breaks right for them, Corn. I think that getting Georgia at home is huge. It'll really honestly depend on what they can do offensively. I think that Jake Bentley regressed this year. I think that's the one thing that you have to kind of concede with this Gamecock team. And if he can get back to the kind of level that we know his peak is at, or at least that we think his peak is at, that will be the real telling sign. And also, if the Gamecocks can avoid the injury bug, they were not able to do that this season. They had some major injuries. If they can avoid the injury bug and Jake Bentley takes a step forward, this team can compete for the East in 2018.
Yeah, they did have that freakish run of lower leg injuries, and you have to cross your fingers and hope that doesn't happen. They have to develop a backup quarterback too, Pro. Yeah. Nobody played behind Bentley. He takes a beating. They have to improve that offensive line, but they have to develop a backup quarterback, whether it's the incoming freshman Joyner or Jay Urich or Scarnecchia. Somebody's got to be able to go in there and play at a high level if something happens to Bentley.
Yeah, I think Urich is a guy that can be a dual threat quarterback, and DeCarrion Joyner with his unique talent. Phil, I think every defensive coordinator, they have to have a package for him to make them work extra on wait a minute, hold it, we got Bentley, but now we got to work on this guy. Always give the other defensive coordinator a headache to see what he can do. And I think Muschamp obviously feels right now that, yeah, there's going to be some momentum now that Florida and Tennessee has their head coaches, and he's got to put the pedal in the metal to take advantage of that hiccup of those two big programs had in the last couple of years.
Okay, guys, Nick Chubb has done it again, 50-yard run, 31-23, extra point pending. Will, we're going to turn it over to you now for some look ahead to Clemson and Alabama. Are we going to see the same kind of offensive explosion in the Sugar Bowl that we're seeing in the Rose Bowl?
I would like to think not, just because I think that we're still waiting for the first game between these two teams to be representative of what these two teams are. These two teams come in with sparkling defenses. Clemson's probably as sparkling as we've seen from them over the course of the last 3 years, with 4 NFL-level defensive linemen, 3 draft-eligible, 2 linebackers in Kendall Joseph and Dorian O'Daniel that are next-level talents, and Ryan Carter on the outside able to make things happen as well. So I think that we'll see more defensively from both of these ball clubs. But the one thing that I find very interesting going in here is that the familiarity with these two teams is going to really the deception factor, I think, is very, very key here, especially with the extra time. And I'm wondering, too, just exactly how each of these teams come up with something that's a new wrinkle in order to try and make things happen. We had a chance to speak a lot with the head coaches over the course of the last couple of days, and also from the players' perspective as well. We had one last chance yesterday to speak to Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban. Here's Dabo Swinney's comments, starting with the very much asked question: why did Clemson practice at Tulane University outdoors instead of indoors at the Louisiana Superdome?
Mike Dooley told me what my options were. I said, well, let's go to Tulane. Just the dome is huge, first of all. And, it's just like yesterday, you go down there and you spend all your time kind of looking around. And I just wanted a little smaller environment. And to be honest with you, that's where we practiced in '92 as well. We practiced at Tulane. And that was what I had in my mind. And so it was great. It was a very good practice setup for us. Yeah, first day was a little cold, but man, it might be the best practice we've had all year. Our guys just loved it and embraced it. And then it was beautiful the rest of the time, but just a smaller setting. I just felt like maybe it would help us have a little more focus. We sent our kickers and punters and punt returners over there on our Tuesday practice, whatever day that was on the calendar here. But so we've done that, and then we'll go over there and work out today as well. So and then we did media day over there. So they've had some experience in there, but I just, from a practice standpoint, I wanted to kind of keep it as much like home as I could and have a really good focus setting.
Yeah, Ivan Mazel, ESPN.com. Dabo, talking about seeing both sets of fans on Bourbon Street and them coming up to you, there seems to be a healthy amount of respect between these two fan bases where it doesn't degenerate into the hate and vitriol that you get with South Carolina, Alabama gets with Auburn. How much of that is the success? How much of that is that you got a foundation in Alabama? What's your sense of that healthy respect?
Oh, there's no question. Certainly, obviously, my background at Alabama, I definitely think plays a part because, a lot of people, I think, want to pull for Clemson, and this is an uncomfortable situation. They're a little conflicted. This is a unique rivalry from that standpoint. But I go home for Christmas every year, and Christmas Eve, I always go shopping at the Summit. That's just what I do. It's my shopping day. And, ate lunch at Taco Mama there at the Summit. And, and I got all kind of people looking at me. And it's to your point, I'm in Birmingham. And I had a lot of Alabama people come up to me and with great respect, they want to win the game. But, they had very nice things to say, like, hey, you guys got a great team, and, such and such. I think so. There's a lot of respect, but I think at the end of the day, Alabama people respect good football. And, I think that they know that we got a good football team and we're going to compete, even when we lost a couple of years ago, and we're going to lay it on the line. And we know they're going to do the same thing.
Check text.
At the end of the day, there is a healthy respect on both sides.
That's Dabo Swinney talking yesterday about this rivalry pro, and I think, too, Alabama, or at least Auburn, provided the blueprint of how to beat Alabama pro. I don't know if there's a blueprint on how to beat Clemson yet.
It was they were inside Jordan-Hare Stadium as well, and they really wanted Alabama. This will be interesting to see who gets stubborn in this football game, because I think Alabama, even if they're stuffed early in the football game and the running game, I still think they're going to depend on it to see if they can turn Clemson into a heavyweight fight. Also, you want to keep the football from Clemson, because their defense, when they get a lot of 3-and-outs, that's when that offense gets his rhythm, and Clemson can become very dangerous. And also, we have to go back to who turns the football over and who has the best game as far as special teams are concerned.
Corn, we haven't seen Alabama's offense at full strength all year. I just don't know how it happens tonight against this defense.
Yeah, I think that I got to believe Jake Venables spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks watching the film of the Auburn game in particular, maybe Mississippi State as well. Those are two teams that held Alabama's offense down the stretch. They beat Mississippi State, Alabama did, but they lost to Auburn. Both those games were on the road as well. So you look at what they did, and you look at how, in particular, Auburn was able to keep Jalen Hurts sort of in that pocket and not let him find running lanes and run wild against you and make him a passer. And I think if Clemson makes him a passer, then they're going to win this football game. And I think offensively, Kelly Bryant just needs to stay within his skin, be what he has been all season long, protect the football, take his shots down the field, and scramble for positive gains when necessary. I think Clemson's going to be fine. I don't think this is going to be the win that a lot of people think Alabama's going to ring up here. No, I'm going with Clemson.
You want me to take it out of this segment, or bring it in rather?
So you gonna bring it in? Yes. Yeah. You bring it in.
All right.
All right. I got Saban ready.
Cool. With the two between Joe Tess and Blacklist, just cue them up to their first answers, and just kind of let me know what in the break what the questions are for the two answers.
I hope. Blackledge, you asked third time around with these guys?
All right.
You just wanted to know what your question was, what your first question was?
For both.
All right, let me look at the other. And the other one was Joe Tess, right?
Yeah.
What do you think is the number one key matchup between each team?
Cool.
But you didn't want me to leave that part on the interviews, right?
No, cue up their answers.
Okay.
And I'll go Tess first. Back to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome here in New Orleans. Sports Talk's double coverage of the Gamecocks and Tigers on New Year's Day for their bowls coming and continuing here on Sports Talk and South Carolina Radio Network. The teams are on the field right now warming up, at least the specialists are for both Clemson and Alabama. If you don't see orange in the stands, you might notice, at least on the near side, the side that basically is behind the TV camera, that's where a lot of the orange is that is filing into the stadium right now. There's a lot of crimson on the opposite side, but there's still a lot of orange in the stands all over the place. I would put it at a 65-35 Clemson crowd advantage right now as we sit here in the New Orleans Superdome. One thing, too, talking again about the practicing inside the Superdome versus practicing at Tulane, The one thing about this building is, if you've ever been in here, is that the lights are not traditional to where a dome would be. They're kind of tucked behind the air conditioning vents and the trusses that are up above there. So it really makes for a more natural lighted atmosphere than a dome would be. You don't have the lights kind of peering down on your eyes. So balls don't necessarily get as much caught up in the eyes as you would at other venues that have a domed roof or a domed ceiling. So in that vein, it's also part of the reason why this building gets so many big events and why they continue to get Super Bowls and college football playoff semifinals and championships. They'll have the championship here in a couple of years. And by the way, the demise of Georgia greatly overstated, because they continue to at least put the pressure on Oklahoma, although they just punted away to the Sooners, who have the football up 31-24 in the Rose Bowl with 8:08 to play in the third quarter. Pro, in your mind, what matchup are you looking forward to the most, to seeing which side gets either exposed or which side gets the advantage between these two teams?
For Clemson, I think it's their running game, because they really move Alabama's defense side to side. And if they have success running the football, Kelly Bryant can have a cup of coffee back there when he's throwing the football. For Alabama, it's sort of interesting. Again, Clemson's linebackers, they have a tendency to be reticent to cover the tight end. Now, they don't have a guy with the ilk they had before, who was the #1 pick for Tampa Bay. But I could see Bo Scarborough going into the slot, going into where an H-back of movement tight end could be, and he could be that guy. So I'm looking for that matchup. Clemson's ability to cover who's ever in the tight end or playing the H-back slot for Alabama offensively, and if Clemson has success, really just opening up that running game against Alabama, that will open up everything else for their offense.
Yeah, the two men who played tight end, Irv Smith Jr., a guy from right here in New Orleans for Alabama, and Hale Henches, who hails from Jefferson City, Missouri, went to Helias High School there. I got to see him play in high school, and those guys are key parts of the offense, but not nearly as much as O.J. Howard used to be. It's funny how when you look at this game and you look at Nick Saban kind of talk about the way this has gone, and then the way these two teams have kind of been linked and almost inseparable going into this third matchup and this trilogy type finish. It's interesting to see how maybe this could be the new normal in college football. And even though this could be a trilogy, Nick Saban believes it won't be a finale.
And speaking of trilogy, this is Nick Saban, I think, trying to get off the snide, his own personal trilogy. I think he's 0-3 at the Dome.
Here's what we had to hear from Nick Saban on Sunday.
It's been pretty well documented, I guess, that Sean Dion Hamilton is out for the game. Dylan Moses is out for the game. Those guys both play the same position, but Mack Wilson will be available to play in the game, who was out the previous games. And I think our two outside linebackers, Terrell Lewis and Christian Miller, who actually played a bit, in the Auburn game, but practiced very little leading up to the game. Both of those guys are probably 100% now, and they've practiced enough to be effective in the game. So Hootie Jones is out for the game, I think. But so what has been documented as players that are out is pretty much where we're at, and the guys that are coming back are coming back. But it's still two inside backers at the same position that are missing. And I think the challenge is those guys were both signal callers, and in no huddle type defenses, the signal caller is very, very important to get the signal, get it communicated, help get the defense lined up. So Mac's very capable. He just doesn't have a lot of experience doing it, but I'm sure he'll do a good job in the game.
Andrea Adelson, ESPN.com. Nick Dabo just said he wouldn't be surprised if there were more matchups in the playoffs between you guys. Do you feel like that's something we could keep seeing, given where you are as a program and where Clemson is as a program?
Nick, Rick Bonnell, Charlotte Observer. Coach, yesterday Todd Blackledge was talking about how he anticipated that if people expect the kind of high-scoring game that you guys had last season, that really isn't necessarily reflective of these teams this year. I wondered if you saw a game that might not be up in the 30s with a whole lot of back and forth scoring?
Well, I think it's very difficult to predict. I think both teams have the capability of scoring points, but I also think that both teams have pretty good defensive players. I think that our two defenses are 1 and 2 in scoring defense, and I'm not sure who's first and who's second. But so that means these teams have been difficult to score on for whatever reasons. But we've had some of those scenarios in the past, in the games that we played in the past, and they have been high-scoring games. So really hard to predict, in my opinion, as to how this game will turn out. I think there's probably going to be 6 or 7 plays in the game that'll make a huge impact on the outcome of the game. And unfortunately, as a player and as a competitor, you never know when those plays are coming. So that's why you got to play one play at a time for 60 minutes in the game. And hopefully when you get an opportunity to make a play that'll have an impact on the game, you'll be there in the right position to do it. So, but I really don't have a great feel for how this game might turn out.
Corn, I know that Alabama wants to try and take Hunter Renfrow out of this game as much as possible, but I don't know if they'll be able to. If they're able to neutralize him, where do you see Kelly Bryant going in the passing game?
Well, first of all, I think that Clemson will run specific plays and patterns to get Renfrow open. I read something interesting. I think it was from Jeff Scott, his position coach, you guys talked to earlier in the week, where he explained that Renfrow runs at a very low level, and it makes him very difficult to defend because of that. He gets the traction on the defender and is able to make his cuts, and he's already very quick. The thing about Hunter Renfrow is, he was a track guy in high school and a baseball player. He's a great athlete. So getting off the line is not a real problem for him when you try to bump and run with him. And so he's going to get his openings, and they'll get the ball to him. So I don't think they can particularly shut him down. However, where else will they go? I expect Ray McCloud to get a lot of work tonight in the passing game and in the jet sweep and things of that nature, using his speed. I think they've got more confidence in Mylan Richard now as well. Kevin, having a hard time with names tonight. T. Higgins grew up in the South Carolina game, and he's become another big target. And don't sleep on Deion Kane, because he'll get behind you and burn you deep. So I think that the matchup with the secondary there with Alabama, Minkah Fitzpatrick in particular, is going to be quite interesting. How they use Minkah Fitzpatrick, and if they line him up man on man with one of these receivers or others. I don't know if they'll move him around and exactly what they'll do. That'll be very interesting to watch.
It's interesting because the one thing that I think this will come down to is that Nick Saban is a great preparation coach. He's not a great adjustments coach. I think that if Clemson has the kind of game plan that's diverse enough to be able to gain yardage on Alabama, the Crimson Tide are going to have a hard time stopping the Clemson Tigers. Whereas if Alabama is able to get some real big traction early, Clemson has a better ability to adjust. More from the Superdome when we return, as more players coming out of the field, more preview from here in New Orleans when we come back on Sports Talk. I'm only going to do one of two with these last ones, because I want to give some time for our analysis. So I'll go with the Todd Blackledge one. Got me? B?
I got it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now, hold on. Let me mute myself so I can hear you.
Yeah, we're doing 3 minutes, 12 seconds with Blackledge.
Awesome.
I was actually holding down Corn's butt and talking. Thought I was talking to you. So
No big deal. I might even junk it if we have a good flow going.
All right.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web. SC.com. Now more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Back in New Orleans with you here on South Carolina Radio Network and Sports Talk on a New Year's Day from Tampa, New Orleans, and our Columbia studios. Will Pelagic, Phil Kornblut, and Professor Tom Hayes as we are about an hour and 15 minutes away from kickoff in New Orleans. They've stopped the game clock here because they're going to exercise what is known in the television business as the 10-minute slide. So the kickoff actually will start more around 9 Eastern time. So for those of you who are making any kind of plans here late, be sure to know that the game will start a little bit later than usual with the Rose Bowl as expected, running along with all the offense that's in there. All right, time for us to kind of make our final predictions for this contest. Start with you, Mr. Kornblut, as with age comes beauty, I would say.
I think you should. I think I'm a prime example of that. Thank you for noticing.
What are your keys to the game for this Clemson ball club against Alabama, playing them for the third consecutive year?
Just make sure Clemson gets to the stadium.
Well, they are on the field right now in the orange uniforms and the orange breeches, so they're there.
Listen. I'm we see Clemson a lot, and I just think Clemson is better than Alabama. I think their defense is as good as it gets in college football, and I think that they will show that tonight against Alabama. I don't think this is going to be the track meet that we have seen the previous 2 years between these two teams. Too many dynamic weapons are missing. Alabama doesn't have the one guy, and you know who I'm talking about, Pro. They don't have the one guy that ate Clemson alive for 2 years, O.J. Howard. They missed that big tight end. They don't have the variety of receivers that Jalen Hurts can go to. I mean, Auburn would double cover Calvin Ridley on passing downs, single cover him on running downs. It worked out great. He had 3 catches, and they all came late. I don't think Clemson didn't notice that and won't apply some of the same ideas there. The next leading receiver, Ridley has 51 catches. The next leading receiver had 14. By the way, Georgia they're within a point now as they just scored another touchdown. That's a track meet out there. I'll be shocked if this game is like that. So all that being said, no injuries coming into play here that knocks out a key player. I think that this is going to be Kelly Bryant's maybe his finest moment until next Monday night in Atlanta, and we shall see. But I think Clemson wins it along the lines of a 28, and I'll give some respect here to Alabama's defense and all that. But I like Clemson here comfortably, not having to sweat it out. I'm talking like 28-17.
All right, Pro, your keys to the game and your final thought going into Clemson, Alabama.
Wow, first of all, I know the celebration of Clemson is there, and they're a tremendous football team. But this team had one of the greatest quarterbacks in college football history, and it took them to the last play of the game to beat Alabama. Alabama is a snake. You have to cut its head off. Clemson used 59 minutes and about 45 seconds to cut the snake's head off. This Alabama team is resourceful. I think it's going to come down probably to a mistake on special teams, a fumble. And I just think that Nick Saban at this time gets off the schneid. And however Alabama does it, they don't care. They're resourceful. And I think the lines of scrimmage are going to be interesting in this one. And I was listening to Nick Saban talking about Christian Miller. Of course, I wonder who's more nervous in this football game dressing in the locker room. Christian or the pastor of pain may be in the stadium biting off his knuckles. That'll be interesting. But I think it's going to be a score about 24-20 Alabama in this football game.
I think the Clemson Tigers will win this football game 31-21, guys. I think we're going to see more of the offense from both of these ball clubs. For some reason, I don't know what it is, whether it's just the last couple of years with the offensive weapons that both of these teams had. I still think that Alabama has the ability to run the football. I'm not saying they're going to run it all over Clemson, but I think that between the arsenal of running backs that Alabama has and the ability of Jalen Hurts to scramble on passes, I think that they'll be able to at least gain some yards, but I don't think they'll be able to gain as many as people would think going in from an Alabama perspective. I think that 21 has been up from a late touchdown that comes from Alabama's side, and I think Clemson will be able to have their way on Alabama's defense. One of the men who calls this game tonight will be Todd Blackledge from ESPN. We spoke with him on Media Day Saturday.
Well, yeah, the first two have been, and I expect this one is going to be a really close contested game. I don't know that it will be as high a scoring affair as the last two, but I think it will be physical, and I think it'll be very close.
How happy is it, at least from a perspective of following them closely, that we're not making the Kelly Bryant, Deshaun Watson comparisons anymore, and Kelly has kind of developed his own legacy?
Well, I think you have to. I mean, Deshaun Watson was a very unique, special player, and he played particularly well or extremely well in 2 games against Alabama. I don't think that this is not the same offense. It's more of a run-heavy offense. He's made a lot of plays, off of that, and in fact, he's been a big part of their emphasis in the run game, even more so than Deshaun. So, he certainly has established himself. The offense is a little bit different. In fact, now I think the offense is a lot more similar to Alabama's offense than it has been the last 2 years.
Do you see a weakness on this Clemson defense?
Well, I don't know about a weakness. I think their secondary at times has been thinned out with some injuries, and they don't get challenged as much because of their pressure that they've been able to create with their front. So I think if you can block them, there are plays to be made. One of the games that I did earlier this year was the North Carolina State game, and I thought North Carolina State had an excellent plan, and because they were able to block and protect their quarterback, they were able to make a lot of throws down the field. Now, Alabama's not a pass-first kind of offense, but you have to block those front four. If you can do a decent job and consistently block those guys, then there's plays to be made.
Yeah, Cleveland Farrell said that this game, in his mind, could mirror the NC State game. Do you think that that's something that we could see on Monday night?
Well, I think it could mirror it in the sense that North Carolina State, I was very impressed with their offense and defensive lines. And I think because they were able to match Clemson in that regard, that's why that game was so competitive and so close. And I think Alabama physically is the same kind of team. They can match the physicality and the talent on the offense and defensive line with Clemson, and that's why I think it'll be a heck of a game.
I hate to use the word demise, but some are trying to write the obituary on Alabama. Do you think that's slightly exaggerated?
Yeah, I think it's slightly exaggerated. There's been 4 years of playoffs, and they've been in it all 4 years. And so they limped down the stretch a little bit in the regular season for a lot of different reasons, but they've had a month off. They will be healthier and fresher and more motivated than I think we've seen them all through the end of the season.
How does each team win the football game?
Well, I don't know if there's any one particular key. I really think it's going to be a lower scoring game, a very physical game. And so when that happens, I think turnovers obviously are a big key. Alabama's been great at protecting the football. It's one of the best things that they've done. But I think in a game like this, turnovers and field position, because I think both defenses will have the upper hand in this game. The last couple years, the offenses have kind of set the tone. I think the defenses will set the tone in this one, and I think field position becomes huge.
All right, guys. Lastly, who is your player that will have the biggest impact in the game? First corn.
Player who will have the biggest impact in the game. I am going to point to, I got to say, Kelly Bryant. I mean, you got to look at the quarterback and say everything runs through him. He plays well, they're going to win.
Who's yours?
Turns it over, they could lose. So for the Gamecocks, I'm for the Tigers. I'm working the game next week. For the Tigers, I'd have to go with Kelly Bryant. Biggest impact on the game.
What about you, Pro?
Biggest impact in this game, I think, will be Wilkins. If he has a dynamite game of stuffing Alabama's rush up the middle, Clemson wins this football game. If he's blocked, Alabama wins the football game with running.
I go with the home state guy, Travis Etienne. Why not Etienne late for a big touchdown? Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you enjoyed Sports Talk from New Orleans, Tampa, and Columbia. We're back in the Palmetto State tomorrow.
All right.